What's up guys, Sean here, and today we're going to talk about one of the dumbest hot takes ever in the history of the Young Turks. For those of you who don't know, I actually try to avoid making so many videos on any one given topic, and especially the Young Turks. In fact, after I do a TYT video, I try to take a break and I tell myself, I need to find some other topics, I need to cover other things, because I can't keep going back to the well, because I feel like you guys will get bored if I keep talking about the same news organization. So I actively, and I mean actively, look for other topics to cover. However, when I do that, occasionally there is a time when a video from the Young Turks comes out of nowhere. It's as if it descended from the heavens to call me out by name in order to make a response video to it. And that is exactly what happened when the Young Turks decided to put out this video about how we may have to cancel the Dalai Lama.
The Dalai Lama is the leader. He's a leader, he's exiled, but he's also a spiritual leader to many. And so people look to him for guidance. Unfortunately, during a recent interview, he said that if he were to come back as a reincarnated being, as the next Dalai Lama, as a woman, that he would want to be hot. And so some reporter challenged him to that.
Okay, so the Dalai Lama, who is the leader of the Tibetan Buddhism faith, has decided that if he were to be reincarnated into a woman, he would want to come back as a hot woman. And his explanation for why he would want this is, well, what's the point if I'm not hot? Now, I completely understand why this is in fact a news story. You have the leader of a faith that preaches enlightenment saying that it's not really worthwhile to have enlightenment unless I'm coming back as an enlightened, super hot girl. I get why it's a story, it's pretty funny on its surface, it's incredibly hilarious when you think about it, and I understand why this would bother so many people in the left wing. People on the left love to romanticize Eastern religions, even though I'd argue that they barely understand these Eastern religions that they're romanticizing. So to have the spiritual leader of an Eastern religion that the left is trying to romanticize say something like this and be very unapologetic about it, I get why that's going to ruffle some feathers. Now, I know you guys didn't assume this was true, so I have to kind of break this down for you before we move on into the story, but I am actually not a practicing Tibetan Buddhist, and I'm not that knowledgeable about Tibetan Buddhism. So in the lead up to this story, I had to do some research on the Dalai Lama and Tibetan Buddhism in order to better understand this. Because honestly, I had no idea even going into this story that according to that faith, the Dalai Lama could be reincarnated into a woman. So I knew my knowledge was definitely deficient, and I'm going to give you some of what I learned so that you can understand later when we get into the Young Turks' amazingly awful hot take, how ridiculous their hot take actually is. So the Dalai Lama is currently the exiled leader of the Tibetan Buddhist faith. The Tibetan Buddhist faith has been under attack in the nation of China ever since the communist Chinese have taken over. Now, the Dalai Lama is believed to be a figure that is consistently reincarnated in order to then become the leader of the Tibetan Buddhist faith. And in order for the Dalai Lama to be discovered, he needs to be found by somebody known as the Panchit Lama. And in order for the Panchit Lama to be discovered, the Dalai Lama needs to find the Panchit Lama. However, because the Tibetan Buddhist faith has been under assault by the communist Chinese, after the Dalai Lama declared the Panchit Lama, he was actually taken into custody by the Chinese government, and it looks like they brought out a fake Panchit Lama in order to assert control over the faith when this Dalai Lama ends up dying. Now, because of this entire situation, the faith of Tibetan Buddhism is greatly in peril by the fact that the Chinese government are trying to assert control over it in order to get rid of it, and the Dalai Lama has said in the past to his followers that he may not in fact reincarnate himself in the next generation, thus essentially ending faith. The Dalai Lama currently is living in exile due to fear of reprisal from the communist Chinese regime. Now, the reason I've taken the time to give you all this background on the Dalai Lama is so that you understand that when we're talking about the Dalai Lama, we're talking about somebody who actually experiences oppression. He is the leader of a faith that is a persecuted minority by the communist Chinese government. Now, I really need you to keep that in the back of your mind, because one of the members of this Young Turks panel is going to argue that she is actually the one being oppressed because anonymous people call her names on the internet, and her job is so hard sitting in an air-conditioned studio complaining about that.
I told one of my colleagues that that female must be attractive, otherwise it's not much use.
Okay, yes.
Can you see why that comment upset a lot of women?
That is one time. If female Dalai Lama comes, and it should be more attractive. If female Dalai Lama, that people, I think, prefer not see that face.
Cool, Lama.
So I want to point out that Brett Ehrlich is incredibly uncomfortable throughout this segment. He said multiple times that the Dalai Lama is a spiritual leader to many.
Lama is the leader. He's a leader. He's exiled. But he is also a spiritual leader to many. So it seems like in that moment, again, the Dalai Lama is a spiritual leader to many.
Because as a white dude, any criticism that he's going to throw at the leader of an Eastern faith is going to look like white privilege attacking a foreign culture. So it's really funny to watch this video just to see Brett Ehrlich stumble through it.
To answer the question, like, if I were to come back, I'd want to be a hot woman. Otherwise, in his previous statement, he said, otherwise, there would not be much use to it. Oh. What do you think, ladies?
This is gross.
Now they show the clip, it's hilarious, and then they throw it over to the panel for discussion. But you can immediately hear right after they show the clip, Brooke Thomas say, it's gross.
This is gross.
Now the reason I've decided to point out Brooke Thomas early on is because she is going to be playing the role of somebody who's going to try and be oppressed the Dalai Lama. But first they're gonna throw it over to this woman who's wearing purple who I've never seen before. I don't know where she's from. And she is going to explain how the Dalai Lama, the leader of the Tibetan Buddhist faith, has comments that are not in line with his faith.
I think I understand where your point is going, though, which is, okay, he is 80. He is the leader of actually a dying faith. Tibetan Buddhism is being harassed. He lives in exile outside of Tibet, and it's being contained. And so I think many things. One is that if you do listen to the Dalai Lama, he does preach a holistic, inclusive life. And so this doesn't really
cute.
No, but that's what's so wild about these comments.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not these comments are not defensible, and I'm not trying to defend them, but it doesn't align with the history of decades of his preaching, of his spiritual messages. It seems like an outlier. It seems bizarre.
Now there's this meme that no matter what your job possibly is, the Young Turks are going to tell you a better way to do it. And that meme has basically come to life with this woman explaining how the Dalai Lama isn't being the Dalai Lama enough. And her reason for supporting the Dalai Lama is so ridiculous, and it has nothing to do with what I told you in the lead up to this, the actual oppression that the Dalai Lama has faced, that I'm just gonna play the clip for you right now and see if you catch it.
I mean, but what I mean by it is his track record is he does call Trump like morally depraved, right? So, I mean, I think that
Yeah, and come on, you guys knew that was the reason she was coming out in support of the Dalai Lama. Because the Dalai Lama said some stuff critical of Trump, therefore she's going to make excuses for the Dalai Lama in this case. Now, I don't think the Dalai Lama did anything that's all that wrong in this case, so I don't mind people saying this isn't that big of a deal. But it goes to show you that nobody on this panel, no matter what side of the issue that they're on, has a good take on this topic. They're talking about canceling the leader of the faith of the Tibetan Buddhist religion.
So I think cancel culture, it's a way for people to cancel people holding people accountable. And sometimes that's what you need. Nobody's killing them.
Right.
It's just, hey, you know what? Maybe you can't be famous. Maybe I'm not gonna buy your stuff.
Now, Brooke, on her path to making the case that she, a woman sitting in an air-conditioned studio, is more oppressed than the Dalai Lama, somebody exiled due to the fact that he leads a minority faith under an authoritarian regime.
I don't like.
I'm not saying
cancel culture though. No, I like that we're having this conversation.
I think it's an important conversation.
Cancel the Dalai Lama, but I don't think that. I think it's this weird. It's like when people are anti-PC.
Right.
Certain words oftentimes come with violence. I'm not a free,
Absolutely.
what am I trying to say? Oh my goodness, I am not a free speech absolutist. I'm not. As someone who's been called the N-word way too many times.
Is making this case because some people send her mean words on the internet, and according to her, some words are inherently violent. Obviously, this is complete and total nonsense. This is leftist oppression dogma that they use to justify responding to words with actual violence. But Brooke's gonna go with that because she needs to throw out her oppression credibility against somebody, again, who we've described many times is clearly actually oppressed. I also want to point out that Brett Ehrlich is still stumbling in this segment. Look at him try to say the phrase free speech absolutist.
I think like free speech absolutist.
Nope.
Because free speech has absolutism, and
nope.
Everyone else is a free speech, sometimes.
A little bit closer, Brett.
And sometimes they're saying free speech is not allowed. But
okay, you got it. Congratulations. Now, I do have to say that although this video has probably the worst take you could possibly have on this issue that comes completely out of nowhere, the Dalai Lama's responses to this woman's question, who's basically begging him to back down from his claim and give like a little bit of an apology, are hilarious. First, he says that there's no point of coming back as a woman if you're not a hot woman. Then it's, if you're offended by this, then maybe you should go out and buy some makeup and fix your face.
See why a lot of women, though, found that quite offensive when you said it.
So one Indian, you see, because of some complaint about my that my expression. But okay, I think they themselves, if there's opportunity to ask whether they spend some money for makeup.
And he also adds that if he has a face that's not appealing, then nobody's going to want to look at it. And he says beauty's on the inside, but the outside really does matter as well.
A lot of women would say that's objectifying women, and it's about who you are inside, isn't it?
Yes, I think both. Real beauty is inner beauty. That's true. But we human beings, I think the appearance is also important.
And you could see on the Dalai Lama's face that he's laughing as he's saying it, because even he knows that this is a little bit funny. I think he's trying to ham up what he's saying to be funny. And I would definitely take that into account as we're reviewing these comments, because he is trying to have a good time with the interviewer and he just does not care about her social justice politics. He's experienced the feel of actual Marxism, so he's not going to submit to this cultural Marxist notion that you have to be PC and basically obey the left over everything. But Brooke Thomas is not having it, because Brooke Thomas has read in between the lines, and she's seen the thing in Tibetan Buddhism and in the Dalai Lama's heart that although he's never said and never expressed at all in any way, shape, or form, she spotted it because she is the truly oppressed individual in this. And that thing that she saw is that the Dalai Lama is in fact a racist.
This is absurd and it's ridiculous. And every country in this entire world has a colorism issue and this standardized beauty. And it is never a woman whose skin is as dark as mine. So I am grossed out by that completely. I don't care that he's 80.
Yes, this is a legitimate hot take that appeared on a video that's still on the Young Turks channel. I did not make that up. I did not manufacture that. That's not a deep fake. That's not a joke. That was said completely seriously. The Dalai Lama saying that he wants to come back as a hot woman if he comes back as a woman is not only sexist, which I can at least get the argument for that, but it's actually racist because everyone has a colorism problem. And Brooke Thomas thinks that that was somehow a slap against black women. Look, I don't mean to be an armchair psychologist, but how insecure can you possibly be? Because if you look at Brooke Thomas, and I'm just being objective and factual here, she is in fact an attractive woman. But for some reason, and I can only venture to guess, it's her obsession with her own oppression narrative, her own victim complex. She has decided to not only take this as sexist, which again, it's the guy saying that he personally wouldn't want to be reincarnated into a woman that's not hot. So it really should be none of your business. He should be able to decide who or what he wants to be reincarnated to. And somebody who's not even of the faith, who probably doesn't believe in reincarnation in the first place, probably shouldn't be lofting criticisms at him for his own personal preference. But for you to add on top of that, that you think the comments are racist because you think the Dalai Lama is saying that he doesn't want to look like you, i.e. a black woman, is completely ridiculous and maybe, and in fact is, the dumbest take I've ever heard on the Young Turks.
And every country in this entire world has a colorism issue and this standardized beauty, and it is never a woman whose skin is as dark as mine.
That is a plot twist that I did not see coming in any way, shape, or form. But honestly, it's indicative of how toxic this victim mentality is. The Dalai Lama didn't say anything remotely connected to race. But Brooke Thomas, attractive, spoiled brat woman who is in an air-conditioned studio in Los Angeles, has not only taken that as a slight against women, which vaguely I can see the argument for, she's taken it as a racist insult against her personally. Insecurity is extremely dangerous, and when combined with this obsession with personal victimization, it becomes a sickness. That is the only possible way that she can look dead in the face into a camera and make it seem like she is the more oppressed figure when comparing herself to somebody who is actually oppressed by a hostile authoritarian government. So I just want to say bravo to the Young Turks. You've discussed canceling the Dalai Lama. You've had a panelist say that she knows how to do the Dalai Lama's job better than the Dalai Lama. And then you wrapped it up with the woman calling the Dalai Lama racist because of her own personal insecurities. There's nothing more I can add to this story. If you like this video, then show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social medias. You can support me with individual donations via PayPal, or monthly through Patreon or Subscribestar. This has been me talking about the topic that's in the title of the video and being stunned by it. Till next time.